Part 67. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 661. Chapter 661. Is this a crazy situation? Although it only lasted one day, I still felt good after pressing it a few times. If I continued like this, I would be able to get hard in 3 days. It's just that there are many gray-white particles in the dark gray cement, which will fall off with a gentle scrape. Suchen compared the off-white particles with the remaining gypsum and found that the two were the same. In other words, although the gypsum was ground into powder and mixed with lime, after watering, the lime solidified, but the gypsum did not react at all. Is this a crazy situation? Su Chen touched his forehead and thought to himself, it seems that gypsum is also divided into gypsum and plaster of Paris. Is it because gypsum has not been burned like limestone? Suchen did what he thought of, regenerated a pile of charcoal fire, and threw the gypsum into it. After a while, the off-white gypsum turned into powder. Suchen didn't expect that the gypsum was so unburned, so he immediately removed the burned gypsum. Come out and smash it lightly with a stone, and the gypsum will crack into several pieces. It is much easier to grind than the unburned gypsum before. Crush the burned gypsum into powder, mix it with another portion of lime, add water and throw it away, add a few pebbles, mix them to make a lump of concrete, and place it next to yesterday's concrete for comparison later. After doing this, Suchen takes everyone to see how the river sand is drying on the stones by the river, and then goes to the bamboo forest. Bring in all the bamboo that was not moved yesterday. Suchen is going to make the model of the hydraulic machine out of bamboo. After all, it is just a demonstration thing. In the end, whether it is strong and durable is not a consideration. Invite a model from the elders craftsmen, help make the hydraulic machine. There are few iron nails in Sujiazai, and the general structure uses mortise and tenon joints. Although iron nails are not used, it is still strong and durable. Suchen just hopes that this craftsman can help him connect the bamboos to each other. The joint parts are all solved by this method of mortise and tenon. In addition, after all, none of the young people are skilled in craftsmanship, so the work must be rough. When the time comes to assemble, the parts will be different in size and crooked, making it difficult to assemble. Yes, that would be a joke. The person who agreed to help Suchen and the others make the hydraulic machine was an elderly grandfather in the Su family village. The old grandfather called Su Kaishung. He was nearly 70 years old but energetic. He was always kind and kind-hearted, especially when they were children like Suchen, they were always happy. But you have to know that Grandpa Su Kaishung was a famous warrior in Sujiazai when he was young. He only learned the crafts later. He could do 80 tricks before. The heavy sword had a lot of blood on it. Suchen said that he wanted to build a water wheel first. Grandpa Su Kaishung understood immediately. After asking about the size, he sawed several large bamboos into several pieces in just a few swish s10 sections. The water wheel is not large in size, with the largest diameter only 1.5 meters. Use hard and strong old bamboo roots to make the shaft, use thinner bamboo tips to make the spokes, and fix sections of bamboo tubes around the spokes, like this a bamboo wheel is made. Small bamboo rafts are fixed outside the bamboo tube to increase the thrust of water on the bamboo wheel. The main structure of the hydraulic machine, the water wheel, is completed. Install some necessary small bamboo fixings. For example, the shaft and sleeve cannot move but can only rotate, and the shaft and sleeve are fixed with bamboo pins, etc. It took almost a day to complete the water wheel. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 662. Chapter 662, He who knows me is a gentleman. After pressing it a little harder, Suchen nodded with satisfaction. The water wheel was still quite strong. Thank you, fourth grandpa, I will bother you tomorrow. Suchan thanked Grandpa Sukai's hung while pouring tea. After the water wheel is finished, the bamboo gears, shafts, bases, etc. need to be continued. Haha, come on, little ones, Grandpa, I am too worried. Grandpa Sukai's hung wiped his sweat and took the teacup and said with a cheerful smile. The Squint Eyes family and Grandpa Sukaishan's family lived next door, so Suchen told the Squint Eyes to keep an eye on the water wheel. And Suchen told the group of children who were watching the fight not to move this turbine. After doing this, Suchen went to an elder brother's house to see how the bamboo sieve was done. As soon as Suchen arrived, he found that the large square bamboo sieve had been prepared and hung in front of the hall. The mesh size of the sieve is well proportioned, which is basically suitable for sifting out small pebbles and the like. After thanking her brother again, Suchen went home for dinner with satisfaction. Dang dang dang. After dinner, Suchen stood in front of the door and beat the gong. This gong was borrowed from his uncle as a bell for class. Now that Suchen is becoming more and more experienced as a teacher, he specially cut a small bamboo stick as long as a foot. The strips were used as pointers, and the door panel used as a blackboard was also painted with a layer of white ash. The chalk was also made of fine bamboo charcoal in advance, and the chalk eraser was a rag dipped in white ash. Suchen planned to wait for the completion of the hydraulic turbine model to take advantage of the adults' admiration. When the time comes, I will ask my dad for a lobby room to use as a classroom. It will be equipped with desks, tables, chairs, blackboards, and teaching aids. If conditions permit, I can even start compiling a small textbook and print 180 sets of it. The author of the textbook is me, Suchen, and it will definitely be a sky-high price collection 100 years from now. Let's get back to the topic, ring the gong, and sit down, classmates. There are also 2 circles of uncles and aunts around, and a few children of 3 and 2 years old. It was a joy to crawl between the legs. Before teaching new knowledge, he would review it for everyone. At the same time, Suchen also began to assign homework, which were simple questions about adding a few to a few and subtracting a few. Let each student do the homework. Next, they will calculate on the spot, and then Suchen will announce the answers, correct the wrong ones, and praise the right ones. After finishing the review, Suchen starts to teach them a new lesson. Bang bang bang. Suchen slapped the door panel with his pointer, coughed and said loudly. Today's new lesson is a very magical method. How amazing is that? For some very large numbers, we use branches to write and draw on the ground, and we can calculate them in at most 10 breaths. How big are the numbers being calculated? It can be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or millions. As long as there are such numbers in the world, we can use that method to calculate them. Oops. The students all opened their eyes wide and stared at Suchen, who was pretending to be mysterious. They all looked forward to it. The adults outside also smiled and waited for Chenur, the boss, to reveal the answer. I said, "Sir, hey, why do I think Chenur's lectures are more interesting than those of the storytellers in the city?" Suhu said proudly while picking his teeth. Su Shunsheng smiled and said, "Firstly, Chenur is good enough, and secondly, who said that Chenur is the son of his employer? Ha 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 ha. He who knows me is a gentleman." Suhu shouted, pretending to be like Liu Bei in a storyteller. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 663. Chapter 663. This method is incredible. This method, I call it vertical arithmetic. Suchen looked at each student and said, and soon he wrote the 2 formulas 1 add 1 equal 2 and 5 add 5 equal 10 on the door panel and said. These 2 addition operations are very simple. Generally, older students can calculate them verbally, but what if it is a slightly larger number like 23 add 46? People with a weak foundation in mathematics may find it difficult to calculate it in a short time, and those who have never studied mathematics may not even be able to calculate it at all. Suchan said something and clicked the pointer on his hand. This feeling is awesome. If I make this number larger and change it to 2356 add 4678, can you do the math orally? Even if you have an abacus, you still need some time. Suchan not only looked at the students below, but also scanned the surrounding adults. In Suchan's memory, the people in Sujiazai had very poor mathematical knowledge. Those who were less than 10 counted with their fingers, and those who were greater than 10 were counted with their fingers. I can't borrow other people's fingers to calculate, but I can't borrow any bigger fingers. I can't calculate no matter how I do it, so I can only ask Sushansheng to make an abacus. This is the case in Sujiazai, and it's not much better in other places. At this time, Sushansheng smiled. He looked at Suchan to see what kind of treasure this boy was going to offer. Look at me. Suchan turned around and wrote 2356 add 4678 in the vertical format on the door panel. 6 add 8 was written with 4 in digits, 5 add 7 was written with 2 in digits. 7034. In just a few breaths, Suchan turned everyone around. A large number that I have never encountered is calculated. This is an extremely simple thing for modern people, but it was a big rarity for the bandits in Sujiazai in the Ming dynasty. Sushansheng frowned and said, at this speed, even my abacus is just like this method is incredible. Successfully arousing everyone's desire to learn, Suchan smiled and took the trouble to teach everyone the method of vertical calculation over and over again. Looking at the attitude of everyone listening very seriously, this is nothing more than the joy of teaching and educating people. After 2 more days like this, the sand by the river was sifted with a large bamboo sieve set up diagonally, and the simple bamboo gear matching the water wheel shaft was also completed. The 2 pieces of cement next to the stream were almost dry and became hard when smashed. Cement with plaster of Paris and cement with raw gypsum dry out to about the same hardness. You know, the cement with plaster of Paris was made 1 day later than the cement with plaster of Paris. This made Suchan discover the benefits of plaster of Paris. It turns out that plaster of Paris is used to speed up the setting of cement. This discovery made Suchan a little excited. Then he thought, the discarded clay might also be of great use, otherwise modern cement would not add this material for no reason. But now, due to backward production conditions, it cannot be realized. Now that the cement, sand, gravel, water wheel, etc. are all ready, it's time to start building the water turbine. After firing and mixing enough cement, transporting enough river sand and gravel, and putting the bamboo turbine base aside, a few teenagers started working hard. Liuzhong Mountain is located in the south of the Yangtze River and west of Poyang Lake. It is still very cold in the mountains in early spring, but Suchan and the others were working enthusiastically, and they took off their rustic cotton clothes and threw them aside. Hey hey hey! Young men, you mix the concrete with a shovel and a hoe. When they were almost done, Suchan gave an order, and baskets of concrete were poured into the foundation pit, while raking the concrete in the pit evenly. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 664. Chapter 664, Hydraulic forging machine starts work. When the concrete underneath is almost done, move the turbine base up and continue pouring concrete until the foundation is filled. Tea is here. Tea is here. The little scholar ran over with a big bucket of tea and was sweating profusely. He just happened to catch up with everyone after finishing their work. Gudong gudong. After a few gulps of tea, the teenagers wiped their sweat and looked at the foundation and turbine base filled with dark gray cement, laughing. 4 days later, the cement in the foundation was completely dry, and the turbine base built in concrete he didn't move at all. Suchen shouted, "Start work." The erection of the main body of the turbine has begun. Several idle brothers and Grandpa Sukaishung came to help. Since the size of the turbine base and water wheel, and the distance between the base and the stream, Suchen strictly calculated and controlled the erection of the turbine. It went very smoothly. 2 main and auxiliary shafts, one up and one down, were designed on the base. 2 concentric bushings were installed on the front and rear of the main shaft to fix it. A few brothers supported the water wheel and connected it to the main shaft with pins. They just finished it. Let go of your hand holding the water wheel, and the water wheel will slowly spin under the influence of the stream. The friction sound of squeak, squeak, squeak was heard. The gear of the main shaft was installed, and the gear on the other end of the main shaft on the base also began to rotate. The radius of the water wheel is much larger than that of the gear, so the force on the gear side is very large. No matter how hard Suchen pulled the gear, he couldn't stop the water wheel on the opposite side. This force was very good. A small bamboo crank slider mechanism was mounted underneath, and one end of the crank was connected to the gear on the countershaft of the base, and the gear on the main shaft is designed to move forward and backward. A bamboo tube is installed at the end of the slider to simulate a hammer. The moving main shaft gear meshes with the countershaft gear, and the countershaft gear drives the crank to start rotating. The crank in turn drives the slide rod to do with the reciprocating motion up and down. The bamboo tube at the lower end of the sliding rod starts to forge. Move the main shaft gear away and no longer mesh with the countershaft gear, and the bamboo tube stops moving up and down. This is the simplest and easiest way. Suchen came up with the practical forging machine structure after going through the mechanical design textbooks in his mind. An elder brother placed a bamboo basket horizontally under the bamboo tube to feel the strength, but he didn't expect that the bamboo tube would deform the bamboo basket in an instant. Fortunately, the bamboo basket had good elasticity and was not crushed. Grandpa Sukaishung put his hand on the bamboo tube to feel it, nodded and said, "Quite strong. Xiao Yi, it seems that the hydraulic forging machine you mentioned is not just for fun." Grandpa fourth, "This is just a model. I am thinking that in the future we will build a large hydraulic machine downstream and use stronger materials. The gears can no longer be made of bamboo and must be replaced with stronger and more wear-resistant materials. This bamboo tube will have to be replaced by an iron pier when the time comes. It will be more exciting than Uncle Tai and his friends. By then, the steel produced per day will no longer be just a few kilograms. As long as there is enough iron, it will not be tiring to produce hundreds of kilograms a day." "Ha. You are so ambitious." Grandpa Su Kaishung pointed at Suchen and laughed. "Tell me, your fourth grandfather, what is the purpose of making this hydraulic forging machine that can produce hundreds of kilograms of steel a day?" Suchen said without hesitation, "In order to be able to make guns and cannons in the future. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion." Author, 7 years. Chapter 665. Oops. Young man, don't lie. Grandpa Sukaishung touched Suchen's head, avoided Suchen's shining eyes, sighed and said, "The world is full of war and chaos. It would be great if our Su family could survive in this chaotic world." The little scholars all looked at Suchen with bright eyes. When they heard Suchen talking about making guns and cannons, they were all very excited. But the older brothers who were helping didn't take it seriously. Chen's hydraulic forging machine, it is indeed a clever mechanism, but how can this be connected with the guns and cannons that can kill people? Not long after Suchen and the others completed the hydraulic forging machine here, groups of people from Sujiazai came to the mountains and forests to see what was new. Everyone was amazed at the hydraulic forging machine that the young boss was talking about. Soon, some people began to notice that the gray concrete was flat under the base of the hydraulic machine. Some people stepped on it and jumped hard, but the concrete floor did not move at all, and they touched it again. It was flat and hard, so I asked the young master, "What kind of soil is this? It seems to be stronger than the sandy soil poured from glutinous rice." Without waiting for Suchen to answer, Hyozu raised his head and said loudly, "This is called concrete. It is made of cement." "I don't understand bar. Concrete? Cement?" Everyone was talking about this new term. When Father Suhu, husband Sushunsheng and other adults in charge of Sujiazai arrived, the atmosphere immediately changed. "Chenur, tell me in detail how to make cement and concrete," Dad said seriously. Suchen sighed in his heart. After all, he is the leader of a village. He is much better than those guys who just see things fresh. He immediately saw the key points. Suchen told the process again. When several uncles heard the cement is extremely simple and cheap to make, and it solidifies quickly and firmly. He immediately took Suchen aside, patted Suchen's still thin shoulder and said, "Young master, you have brought a big treasure to our Sujiazai." They were not aware of the power of the hydraulic forging machine for the time being, but they immediately saw the effect of cement. In fact, the ancients were not stupid, they just had less knowledge than modern people. It's okay if they don't pay attention to the hydraulic forging machine. The success of making a hydraulic machine this time is actually just a successful advertisement. Let me tell you, I, Suchen, am a capable person, and I am fundamentally different from an ignorant young man. Wait until the cement is actually used in the defense of Sujiazai and residences. Suchen's reputation has increased, and it will not be difficult to finalize the real hydraulic forging machine. The hydraulic forging machine is ready, allowing everyone to see that the manufacturing of steel is not as difficult as before, so to Dad, and it's not that difficult for my uncle to promote the manufacture of guns. If you can make guns, in these troubled times, no one in the bandit den of Sujiazai in Wujiang Mountain will be stupid enough not to make them. If you can make guns, if you are self-controlled, will the Sujiajin be far behind in the future? Wow, click, click, click. In the early spring of the 14th year of Chongjin's reign in the Ming dynasty, Sujiazai, located in Wujiang Mountain, Yuanzhou Prefecture, Jiangxi Province, was a bustling scene everywhere. After becoming familiar with the cement manufacturing process, Sujiazai mobilized all its strong labor force and began to build the largest project in Sujiazai's history, city building. That's right, it's building a city. First, various fortifications and tall watchtowers were poured with concrete at various dangerous points on the mountainside where the stockade is located, and then the city wall was built along the mountain. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 666. Chapter 666. Both farmers and bandits. Although the city wall is not as thick as the wall of the big city outside, the concrete wall is much stronger than the earth wall no matter how thick it is. By the time the city wall was completed, more than a month had passed. Since it was built against the mountains, there were not as many walls as expected. Coupled with the convenience and speed of concrete, the rapid construction speed made everyone in Sujiazai praise Xiaodong's magical invention. At this time, it is time to plant rice in Wujiang Mountain, and many of the strong laborers have gone to farm at the foot of the mountain. The bandits here in Wujiang Mountain all have the same characteristic, that is, they are both farmers and bandits. The fields are cultivated and the money is looted. In this way, it can basically guarantee that the whole village will have a guaranteed harvest despite drought and floods, and will not be hungry every year. In such a world, everyone is very satisfied to be able to live such a life. There are various roads in the village on the mountain. Generally speaking, there are 3 types of roads: water road, fire road, and earth road. Waterways are the most normal roads, used for daily communication between villagers. The fire road is a road specially used to transport stolen goods during looting. This type of road is generally not obvious. It leads directly to the inside of the village and does not allow outsiders to pass by. The dirt road is a secret passage for escaping. Generally, no one knows there is such a road unless the village owner tells it. The roads built in Sujiazai now are commonly known as waterways. After all, waterways are the roads that people use the most. Building them better will benefit you, me, and everyone. Homemade cement costs no money, and the few remaining strong laborers built the waterway into a smooth and solid cement road little by little. Then they plan to repair the fire channel after the water channel is repaired, so that it will be easier to haul things. There is no need to move the earth road. It is for escaping. It is enough to be usable and secret. Just like that, another month has passed, and Sujiazai has changed drastically. The previously narrow and uneven mountain roads were replaced by wide and smooth cement steps, the mud roads were replaced by clean cement roads, and the wooden and earthen watchtowers became tall, strong, and majestic concrete-clad stone towers with parapets, door openings, etc. Everything is available. Among the mountains and shrubs, from time to time, one can see gray-white city walls built against the mountains, with villagers walking and patrolling on them from time to time. And the residential area of the village is now under construction. Father Suhu seems to want to turn his Sujiazai into a cement city, and now he has begun to renovate everyone's houses. All dilapidated, thatched, and mud houses will be demolished and rebuilt into concrete houses made of cement and enlarged stones. Due to the limited labor force, the stones come in different shapes and sizes. We just use the adhesive force of cement to wrap the stones in, and then apply a layer of mud, grass, or something on the outside, and then smooth them. In this way, although it looks the same from the outside, the solidity on the inside is completely different. If only one floor is built, the roof will continue to be built with wooden beams. If it is to be built on 2 floors, use the method suggested by Suchen to pour bamboo reinforcement and concrete. This construction method was quickly accepted by everyone, and soon there were many double-story cement buildings in Sujiazai. Several uncles with higher status in the village, including Suchen's family, have begun to renovate new buildings. The bricks will not be burned for the time being, but there are a lot of stones in the mountain. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 667. Chapter 667 Revenge. Knock it a little smoother and lay it on piece by piece. Then use a wooden grinder to smooth the cement on the outside, and then apply a layer of white ash to make it very smooth. This structure of concrete and stone is very strong, so the windows can be opened wider and wider, and the lighting in the house is much better than before. Looking at the bustling scenes of construction sites in Sujiazai, Suchen looked a little sad. It has been 3 months since the hydraulic forging press model was successfully built, but the original plan to build a large-scale practical hydraulic forging press has been delayed again and again by my father. There are several reasons. First, we are busy with farming and renovating Sujiazai, so manpower and material resources cannot be spared. Second, there is no rush to use the hydraulic forging press now. Taibo's small iron shop can already meet the needs of the village. Third, my father didn't say it, but Suchen figured it out, that is, he is too cautious and has too little qualifications to convince the public. The invention of cement indeed made everyone admire young Dongjia with admiration, but this was not enough. What everyone really wanted was Dongjia's ability, composure, wisdom, and prestige. As for Suchen, who comes from a bandit family, he hasn't let anyone see any of his abilities in this area yet. On the contrary, the young master's family was beaten half to death by Wu Lin from Jiguanling 3 months ago. Fortunately, Suchen's body has undergone tremendous changes in the past 3 months. Although nothing could be seen on the surface, the muscles and strength all over his body were enough to beat Suchen against 3 and 4. This also gave Suchen the idea of revenge. Now that everyone has no time to be busy with construction, I just happened to find Wu Lin to regain the lost face and establish my authority in the village. If there is a plan in the future, it will be easier for everyone to implement it. Thinking of this, Suchen announced to the villagers in a big way, "Dear uncles, aunts, brothers, and sisters, today I solemnly announce that I am going to Jiguanling to avenge that brat Wu Lin." I heard Suchen's shout. For a moment, the village, which was already in the slack period, suddenly became lively. What? The young master is going to Jiguanling for revenge. Brother Chen, I support you. Count me among those who beat up Wu Lin. And I am coming too. Little scholar, with your skinny figure, don't cause trouble. Young master, think twice. I almost lost half my life last time. Don't do it again this time. Why don't we play bravely and fight ruthlessly? Hearing everyone's kind advice, Suchen felt a little warm in his heart. He said loudly and energetically, as a member of Sujiazai, being brave and fighting is our style. How can you not take revenge after being beaten? Right? The young master is right. This is the young master of our Sujiazai. Revenge. Beat the shit out of that guy named Wu. Seeing the excitement of a group of young people, some of the older generation Sujiazai people sighed with complex expressions. They knew that it was useless to persuade them now. They could only warn in a deep voice, "Young master, we know how to stop them." Can't stop you. But you must remember that if you keep the green hills, you won't have to worry about running out of firewood. Young master, you are still young. Suchen smiled and nodded, then led a group of tigers, scholars, and other young people to Jiguan Ridge. The older generation quickly informed the village leader. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 668. Chapter 668, Entering the One-Way World. And just when Suchen led a group of young people from Sujiazai to Jiguanling, the surrounding flowers and trees suddenly collapsed. Hu Ziyi, Xiao Shuzheng and several other friends who were familiar with each other didn't seem to notice the strangeness at all. They were still shouting and laughing at each other, excited about the upcoming fight. He was completely unaware that his entire body was gradually turning into pieces and flying away. Suchen looked at everything around him. A glimmer of enlightenment suddenly came to my mind. Have you perfected another thread of soul? I really look forward to what the next small world will look like. Although this small world, the dream of ancient industrial overlord, has not yet been realized. But compared with perfecting the soul silk and improving strength, it is nothing. After all, these are just simulated small worlds created by Fei Yan, Luo Shen, and the others. Thinking about this, Suchen returned from the collapsed void to the small world where Luo Shen and other girls were. Came back. Do you want to take a rest first? Luo Shen, Yun Feiyan, and the other girls expressed concern. Suchen thought about it and felt a little tired of it. After all, it is a bit exhausting to keep separating imperfect soul threads and enter different small worlds to experience and perfect them. Immediately, he returned to the Yan realm with the girls and lived for 100 years. At the same time, Suchen also adjusted the time in the Yan realm. It was 100 times faster than the outside world. In this way, there was only one time to rest and delay. Year. Then Suchen ordered Luo Shen, Yun Feiyan, and the girls to reopen a new small world directly in the Yan realm to perfect the soul silk. Husband, it has been set up. This time, it is a special semi-time travel version of the world. Semi-time travel version, Suchen was a little surprised. Luo Shen smiled and explained it is to build a one-way passage between two small worlds. People in one world can freely access the other small world. However, since your soul thread is being perfected faster and faster, the process in this small world will not be too slow. You should be able to complete the soul thread and return here soon. So that's it, let's get started. It's ready, husband. Suchen nodded. He separated out an imperfect soul thread and threw himself directly into the world passage opened by Luo Shen. After a while, the sky and the earth spun. Suchen successfully entered the small world and transformed into one of them without knowing it. At the same time, a large area unfamiliar memories were also introduced into the mind of Suchen, who was transformed into a thread of soul. In the dim utility room, the thin Suchen held a pistol purchased online with trembling hands. He doesn't want to commit a crime, he just wants to save his only sister. His parents died young, and at the age of 20, he and his 16-year-old sister Suzuki depended on each other. However, a month ago, my frail sister was diagnosed with severe liver cancer and had reached the advanced stage. Suchen couldn't accept this fact. He couldn't just watch his only close relative die. He frantically borrowed money from everywhere and sent his sister Zioki to a high-end hospital to save her life. However, the interest of 5 cents a month was beyond what he could afford to pay back with a small street vendor. It had only been 1 month and the family was already completely destitute. The water and electricity bills were not paid, and the house was cold and dark. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 669. Chapter 669, Dear, I will give you 10 yuan back for your good reviews. Suchen felt the heavy and cold gun in his hand, gritted his teeth and pressed the bullets into the magazine one by one according to the very considerate instructions of the online shopping store owner. These bullets may soon turn into bursts of blood, spreading freely. Dear, if you give a good review, you'll get a 10 yuan cashback. Inside the bullet box, there was a cashback slip placed flatly. Suchen showed a wry smile, crumpled it into a ball and threw it aside. Before this, he had never touched a real gun, let alone fired it. But for his sister's illness, he had to bring it with him. Because, in this utility room, right in front of his eyes, a black circle of light with a diameter of half a meter was quietly suspended in the air. Like a faint ancient mirror, slowly it rotated slowly, and from time to time a streak of ink light flowed on the edge, exuding bursts of mysterious aura. Suchen looked at the circle of light in trance, and his mind was in a trance for a moment. Actually, appeared in front of me. You know, the year 2040 is an extremely special year. In this year, more and more people in the world found that some inexplicable black rings appeared around them. After the initial testing, people were shocked to discover that the black aperture is actually a passage to another world. Although governments around the world block the news as quickly as possible, in this era of extremely developed internet, the black aperture and another world have become open to everyone. Secret. However, what really sparked the passion for global travel was in March of this year. A bold beggar in country M found a 1-foot-wide black circle of light in a trash can and traveled through the past. For 3 days. Afterwards, he came back and brought back a bunch of strange tableware from another world, which was purchased by a collection company for a high price of $300,000. At the same time, a cancer patient in country T saw a 1-meter diameter black circle on the roof of his house. An hour later, the cancer patient rushed out of the circle of light in fear and brought back a vermilion fruit. Later I heard that he ate the fruit and was miraculously cured. His terminal illness. If the above 2 examples only make people ready to take action, then in late March, a multinational company with government background in country Z. In a huge black aperture with a diameter of 100 meters in the sky above the international waters, It activated several heavy-duty military helicopters pulled out a diamond weighing dozens of tons, which caused a sensation in the world. The subsequent international disputes continued for several years. However, when people were shocked and attracted to another world, some scholars who can still remain calm stand up and remind the government and the world that these apertures that allow people to travel to another world, or wormholes, will cause social chaos. Some desperados are likely to use black. The aperture is the ultimate refuge, so they can commit more crazy crimes and retaliate against society without any worries. The large acquisition of some precious metals will trigger the collapse of the global price system and even an economic crisis. What's more serious is that since people on Earth can pass through, if aperture travels to that world, can the creatures in that world also travel to the Earth? The resulting world-class war will have immeasurable consequences. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 670. Chapter 670, Crossing the Black Aperture. Travel across the world. However, after half a year of becoming familiar with the black aperture and another world, people gradually discovered that this wormhole is one way. That is, only life on Earth is allowed to travel freely in the black aperture, but life in that world cannot. In addition, matter, or dead objects, can also freely travel through this wormhole. Now the governments of various countries could no longer sit still and directly organize troops to transport batches into the black light circle. A foreseeable colonial era of other worlds that will completely surpass the age of navigation of mankind is about to begin. Thinking of this, Suchen shook his head and thought about his sister being cared for by nurses in a high-end private hospital. This month's interest money has been paid, and he still has a month to breathe. But if by next month, I still can't raise enough money to repay the interest, the house left to me and my sister by my parents will be used as a mortgage. When the time comes, this black circle of light will be discovered, and I will lose this only chance to fight. Another world equals all hope. This is the cry from the bottom of every society on Earth. This is also the deepest cry from the bottom of Suchen's heart. He needs hope, and Xiaoqi needs hope even more. In fact, after more than half a year of contact with the other world, no one on Earth has people gradually discovered that the other world was not as beautiful as they imagined, or that they were at the mercy of others. On the contrary, some people with superpowers in the other world were even powerful enough to resist missiles and fight with fighter jets in the air. Among them, and there are many strange animals and plants with powerful power that can kill a fully armed special forces soldier in an instant. Looking for treasures in another world turns out to be not as easy as imagined, and even a bad one can die tragically in another world. However, this bad news may stop some wealthy upper-class people from exploring, but it will not stop the desire of people at the bottom of society to change their destiny. Suchen is one of them. He wants to save his sister. If you want to repay the huge interest, or even want to change your destiny at the bottom of society and become a master, you must break into this different world. Clenching his fists and biting his cheeks, Suchen strengthened his belief. Once again, after taking inventory of the necessary items on his body, he put on his pistol, took a deep breath, and stepped into the dark circle of light. The moment he entered the circle of light, his exposed skin felt a touch of coldness sweep across it, causing goosebumps to rise. Then, a strange smell of dampness and coldness hit his face. He took a step forward, and he was already in another world. His eyes were still dim and cold. Since it was still September on Earth, Suchen only wore an extra layer over his short-sleeved shirt. The jacket with strong material was not very warm, and I couldn't help but shiver at this moment. Why is it so cold? Suchen cursed secretly, took out his flashlight, turned it on, and looked around, only to realize that he had traveled through a cave. The cave was not big, just big enough for one person to pass through. In some places, it could only be drilled through, and the passage was not straight, but undulating up and down. Looking back, there was a black circle of light with the same diameter of half a meter behind him. Suchen turned around and walked into the black circle, and his body immediately appeared in the utility room of his house.